Welcome to Detective Comic Talks, the podcast about DC Comics by DC Comics fans. Hey guys, welcome back to Detective Comic Talks. If you're new around here and enjoy listening to us discuss the DC Universe, please remember to subscribe to the channel on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. And of course guys, if you're listening to us on YouTube, please remember to like this video and subscribe to the channel to make sure you don't miss out on any future content coming your way from Detective Comic Talks. This week guys, Ray Fisher has his say on Joss Whedon and his treatment of the cast and crew on the set of Justice League. We discuss Matt Reeves' The Batman and a potential spin-off show coming your way on HBO Max. We also discuss casting for Black Adam and the future of DC movies and the secret movies that are set to be announced at DC Fandom in August. Okay guys, with all of this to discuss, I can't do it on my own, so please welcome back my Bat brother from another Bat mother from DC's Daily Buzz. It's Jake.
Hey everyone, how's it going?
How you doing?
I'm great, what about you?
I'm good. This is crazy,
Yeah, it is.
This has blown my mind. Yeah, it's not been easy being a DC fan these last 7 years.
Yeah, but I gotta admit, between Goosebumps and getting enthusiastic, I gotta say, Warner Bros. And DC, they're not giving us the chance to breathe. Those last couple of months have been really full. A lot of announcements, a lot of reports, a lot of rumors. We couldn't breathe. But again, that's the fun of being a comic book fan these days.
Before we were discussing when DC Fandom was first announced, me and you had a podcast about 3 weeks ago and we were talking about what we hoped was going to happen at DC Fandom, and what me and you were saying was, the biggest hope would be Henry Cavill will be confirmed as a return for Superman. Oh my god, the amount of stuff that's came out since. Henry Cavill just seems like a passing comment at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But Jake, let's get into it. We better start this week with a big subject. This one came totally out of the blue. There was no warning where this was coming from. It happened about 10 days ago. We had Ray Fisher, of course, our cyborg. He starred in Batman vs Superman, Justice League. We do understand he's going to appear in the upcoming The Flash movie from Andy Muschietti. And of course he's going to appear in Zack Snyder's upcoming Justice League, which will debut in early 2021. On HBO Max. But Ray took to Twitter, Jake, and he said he posted a video. He took to Twitter and he posted a video from San Diego Comic-Con, I think it was in 2017, where, of course, Justice League was being paraded. That was set for a November release in 2017. And it was a clip of basically Ray Fisher saying that Zack picked a great guy, Joss Whedon, and he's basically praising Joss, saying he's a great guy and he's the perfect guy to finish off Zack's vision. Well, this week, Ray Fisher tweeted that video with a response saying, "I'd like to take a moment to forcefully retract every bit of this statement." So that was a bit like, whoa, really? We know the stuff for the Joss Whedon cut of Justice League and the fact that Ray Fisher was meant to be a major character in Justice League and he was pushed, his character was almost made like a side character in the movie. So that was a bit of a shock when we saw that. A few days later, Ray Fisher continued his rant against Joss Whedon and said the follows: "Joss Whedon's on-set treatment of the cast and crew of Justice League was gross, abusive, unprofessional and completely unacceptable. He was enabled in many ways by Jeff Johns and John Berg." And the tweet ends with, "Accountability, entertainment." So Jake, this was massive. It was completely out of the blue. We know that a lot of people were unhappy with certain aspects of Joss Whedon's cut of the movie. We've heard slight rumours and speculation about certain things that happened on the set, but again, nothing official, nothing came from anybody that was actually involved in the movie. It was all people who were speculating about certain incidents, but we can't really comment on those because, again, it's all speculation. Variety, they reached out to Joss Whedon for a comment. Joss Whedon refused to comment on it. They reached out to Jeff Johns, who was another person mentioned in the tweet. He declined a comment. And they also reached out to John Berg, who at the time was part of the executive team alongside Jeff Johns overseeing DC movies. But John Berg was willing to give a response to Ray Fisher's comments, and John Berg said as follows: "Categorically untrue that we enabled any unprofessional behaviour while Justice League was in production." John Berg then went on in the statement, Jake, to say that all he remembers about the Ray Fisher and the production of the reshoots all he remembers is, I remember Fisher being upset that we wanted him to say Booyah, which is a well-known saying of Cyborg in the animated series. Of course, John Berg is referring to Teen Titans animated series where Cyborg's famous catchphrase was Booyah, and John Berg is saying in his response that Ray Fisher was unhappy with doing that. Okay, this is a crazy situation. Like, I mean, this is the first actor, main cast member that stepped out and actually publicly said anything negative about Joss Whedon. You know, we do know that a lot of the main cast are very supportive of Zack Snyder. Of course, Zack hired them. You know, when they signed up to DC Films, they signed up to Zack Snyder's vision. But this is the first time an actor has came out and attacked Joss Whedon publicly. What do you think of this? Like, just give us your opinions. You know, I'm not asking you to say, did it happen, did it not happen? We don't know. We weren't there. But I think it's important that we address what they said, give him the chance, because I give the benefit of the doubt. You know, I wasn't there, but I trust Ray Fisher. I trust anybody's word. I want to give him the opportunity to have his say, and I want to hear what you have to say, Jake, on this.
Just like what you said, none of us were there. None of us really, saw what happened or worked with the studio. And if I want to speak about this, I got to say my perspective, but I'm trying to, I'm going to make this more professional. I got to say, if Ray decided to come after years of the movie's release and to talk about his terrible experience, I think I'm not going to say praise him, but again, respect his decision. And again, the fact that the whole cast has been supporting the Snyder move, like not all of them, but most of them were supporting the Snyder move throughout the years. I mean, there's a point. But again, I don't want to, get mixed between opinions and different perspectives, but it's hard to not lean on a side sometimes because that's a sensitive topic. It's either you're on Joss's side or you're on Ray's side. So, I don't know, man. I mean, if it really happened or it didn't, again, we can't really say anything about it.
One thing I'll say, guys, is we do not condone any unacceptable behaviour anywhere set by any individual. If Joss Whedon was unprofessional, was abusive towards cast and crew members, then screw that guy. Then screw him. If he was on set and he was abusing actors, if he was forcing actors to do things they didn't want to do, then screw that guy. But until we have solid evidence that any of this happened, then it would be unfair of me to say screw Joss, because again, I don't have any evidence to back that up. But I'm going to hear in Detective Comic Talks and DC Daily Buzz, we want to talk about the big issues. We are DC film fans, so I am going to talk about this issue. What happened with Justice League? Nobody won. Zack didn't win because Zack was a guy who came into DC Films after Man of Steel. Warner Brothers basically told him, you're the man. Gave him the keys to the kingdom. Let Zack build his DCEU the way he wanted to build it. And of course we know that it was dark. And it doesn't matter if I enjoy Zack Snyder's movies or I don't enjoy Zack Snyder's movies. The fact is, Warner Bros. Gave Zack that opportunity. They told Zack he was going to be the guy. And then after the release of Batman vs Superman, the bad reviews, the split from the fans, the poor, well, in the eyes of Warner Bros., the poor box office, because they projected Batman vs Superman was a minimum $1 billion hit. They decided, after Zack had already set up in Batman vs Superman the future of the DC movies, and was already heavily into pre-production of Justice League, Warner Bros. Decided to step in and say, sorry Zack, thank you for all your work, but bye-bye. And basically said to Zack, we don't need you anymore. And at that point, Zack already in pre-production of Justice League. I've said in this podcast before that I believe Justice League should have been pushed, but people at Warner Bros. Are more interested in making sure they got their bonus that year by making sure Justice League came out on the date they said, so that they could get their money and get their slice of the profits. That's all. That's why Justice League wasn't moved. If Warner Bros. Were truly clever about things, they would have pushed it, but they didn't. And of course, they kept Zack on. And Zack didn't even get to do the movie that he was planning on doing, because as we know, while production was going on, Warner Bros. Were constantly asking him to rewrite things and change things. They weren't happy about the response to Batman vs Superman. So I feel sorry for Zack in that sense. I also feel sorry in the sense of when Joss Whedon was brought in. I think that he was brought in by Warner Bros. And basically told, okay, we've got a movie that's already 300 million spent on it. It's already shot principal photography. It's basically lying out there in the middle of the ocean. Here you go, Joss, liven it up, make it a lot more family friendly and comedic. Here you go, that's what we want you to do. You've got 2-3 months to reshoot the film, go and do it. I have sympathy in the sense of Joss Whedon that is impossible in my opinion. We disagree. I know that personally we disagree on this, Jake, but I think that's impossible. I think to come in to a movie that's already 300 million deep, that has already got all the budget spent, see when Joss Whedon took over, I think it was the 1st or 2nd of January 2017, the movie was released in November 2017, so that's under a year before release. At that point, the movie should be shot and VFX should have started. But as we know, Zack was removed. So it meant that VFX hadn't even started on the movie. So already you're miles and miles behind. Joss comes on set. And of course, as you can imagine, Jake, when Joss walks on set, it's not Zack. People know these are two different directors. Joss Whedon is a guy, his whole career, not only is his 2 Marvel movies that he made, but his Buffy work and stuff like that. Joss is a director who always goes for the comedic stuff. That's his forte, and he's good at it. We can disagree on Justice League. I am not going to sit here and say that Justice League is the Dark Knight perfection, But yeah. I think that Joss was brought on to do a task, and to be fair to Joss, he did it. Whether or not he did it well, we can disagree on that, but he did it. And as you can imagine, Jake, when Joss came on set, he was met with mixed receptions by the cast because they've all signed up to do Zack Snyder's vision. They've all signed up for the dark, gothic, gloomy vision.
Yeah, I gotta disagree on Man of Steel. I mean, I think Man of Steel kind of caught a lot of great parts about the Superman comics and also tried to stay realistic and, just like what you said, darker,
Yeah, well, Man of Steel maybe is an exception. Yeah, I'll give Man of Steel the exception in the sense that Man of Steel has got good parts.
Batman versus Superman.
Man of Steel's got good parts in it. I still think Man of Steel's got a lot of issues in it, but I think it's, I think there's definitely watching Man of Steel, what they could have done post Man of Steel with a Man of Steel 2 and building up the universe could have been 10 times better than what they decided to do with Batman vs Superman. But anyway, more on to the point about Joss Whedon. He's came on set, he's got all these people who are all there for Zack, and basically Joss Whedon's man went, okay, we're going to do this, and it's going to be a completely different, thing than what Zack was doing. It's more comic booky, and you're going to get people who are going to go, wait a minute, no, I never signed up for this. The Avengers, Justice League, people are always going to react like that, and of course you're going to have some people that are going to go and huff over that because they're all pro-Snyder, and as we've discovered now, the way Zack was removed was really shitty by Warner Bros. The fact that they used the death of his daughter to remove him for the project when he should have just, if Warner Bros. Didn't want Zack to do Justice League, they should have just removed him from Justice League and pushed the movie a year and then brought in a director. Instead, Warner Bros. Kept Zack in the role until they could convince Joss Whedon to take on the task, and by that point it was far too late. In saying that, there's no excuses. If Joss Whedon was on set and somebody like Ray Fisher was saying, no, I don't want to do the Booyah line, come on, that's Cyborg's line, that's his thing, But if Ray Fisher was on set saying, no, I never signed up for the Booyah Cyborg, I signed up for the tormented Terminator, Robocop type Cyborg, I could imagine that things would get a bit heated, but that doesn't mean that Joss Whedon should take it out on the casting crew. Just because he's got a different vision from Zack doesn't give him any right to abuse or be unprofessional with any cast members. And if he did, as I say, screw him. Mm-hmm. But as I say, it's so difficult for me because I can totally understand Zack's position. Zack put so much work into the DCEU. As much as I was a massive fan of what Zack was doing with my characters, I felt like he was doing things with the DC characters that were really uncomfortable. But I totally appreciate, from Zack's point of view, DC told him, DC knew what Zack was planning and they allowed Zack to do it. And DC were far too late to step in and say, oh no, we don't like it. Because by the time DC stepped in, Zack had already set up the nightmare scenario in future Justice Leagues. He'd already teased Darkseid. There was so many things that Zack had set up. Warner Bros. Were far too late to step in, but that's where I would go to the blame. I would start with Kevin Tsujihara, was the former CEO of Warner Bros. I would put the blame on him. Mm-hmm. This past week, we've heard news from HBO Max that they have given a series commitment to a TV drama set in Gotham. The series will be produced by the Batman director Matt Reeves and Terence Winter. Terence Winter, guys, if you don't know, he is the guy behind producing and writing on The Sopranos, a really famous series on HBO, and of course Terence also was nominated for an Academy Award for screenwriting on The Wolf of Wall Street, Martin Scorsese's Academy Award winning directed movie. So Jake, we don't know too much about it. Matt Reeves has come out with comments saying this is an amazing opportunity to not only expand his vision of the world, but explore the kind of different depths in Gotham City and the crime-ridden city which Matt Reeves, the Batman, will be produced in. And we do know it will be set in the first year of Batman. We know that the Batman's going to be a year 2, year 3 movie, and this movie will be a year 1 tale. So we might get to see Robert Pattinson in it, we might not, we don't know too much about it. But what do you think of this, Jake?
I'm beyond hyped. I think it's a great idea, like a wonderful idea. Maybe this is finally the time where we have a full-on linked universe on the small screen and on the big screen as well. And I gotta say, a show focused on the Gotham GCPD, I know some people might say it's like and that's the first thing I thought of. It's like, are you replicating what happened on Gotham? But again, I think this is different. I think it would be also a great way to introduce characters like Renee Montoya, for example, characters like Kate Kane, who knows, on HBO Max, and then have them on the big screen. So, yeah, I think it's a great idea, and I'm definitely excited about having the show on HBO Max.
I had to laugh when you said Kate Kane, because I know how you feel about that woman.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I think if the right people were hired to run this character, do her right, do her justice, I think it would work awesome, because her character is pretty interesting in the comics, not in the show, in the comics.
I mean, guys, this is such a great opportunity to not only expand Matt Reeves' world, but, we have the critically acclaimed Gotham Central comic series that ran a few years back. It was a fantastic comic. Anybody that hasn't picked it up, you've got to read it. It's a non-Batman story. Batman's in it. She's in and out of the story, but it's more focused on the 95s, the general workers in the GCPD. It's a fantastic story. It was cut short terribly. It was such a great series. It didn't have great sales, but I think anybody there has to pick up. I think this is a great opportunity for Matt Reeves to extend it. It's shown again, HBO Max. We're going to have such a variety, Jake, on there. We've got Zack Snyder's Justice League coming on there. We know that J.J. Abrams' Bad Robot production company is working on the Justice League Dark series. We know that Jeff Johns and I think the guy from the CW, I can't remember his name, Greg Berlanti, he's working on Green Lantern, a potential series that should link in my Green Lantern movie whenever we get that movie. It just shows you that HBO Max, Jake, is having so much diversity on their channel, and it's not just, it'll be great because I think Matt Reeves' world, what we've heard, he's going to have it that everything's already set up. Thankfully, it's not going to be an origin tale for Batman. I think we're all sick to death with that. We've seen Tim Burton's Batman 89, but he's relatively new. We've seen Batman Begins, even The Dark Knight. Dark Knight's supposed to be year 2 Batman. It's very early. I think one of the big attractions to Ben Affleck's Batman was the fact that he was a Batman that had been Batman for years. And the fact that Matt Reeves' Batman is going to be a Batman who's, been in Gotham for a few years. He's maybe not the older Batman, but he's still, everything's established, we don't have to go through, okay, who's this guy? Oh, an origin film for this character. Everything's going to be established. And I think, looking at this, it possibly gives the opportunity that if characters like Zoe Kravitz or Colin Farrell do well, it's their respective characters, Catwoman, Penguin, even Paul Dano's the Riddler, we could see these characters given series on HBO Max. I don't think that's impossible to imagine. So guys, talking about the Batman, we'll move on to the next subject. It has been speculated this week, Chris Tapley, who used to work at Variety, is now working at Netflix. He tweeted that he's hearing the Batman picks back up in September. Of course, the Batman shooting was suspended on the 14th of March due to the current pandemic. We haven't heard of when the movie will restart shooting again, but Chris is saying that he's heard the Batman will pick up shooting in September. All locations are scrapped. Everything is being built inside the studio now. So, Jake, what this means is the Batman, as we know, Matt Reeves has said 25% of the movie's been shot so far. We know that some outdoor shooting has taken place in London, Liverpool, and of course in Glasgow. We've seen the Bat Psycho was on view for everybody to see. You know, that was in Glasgow and in Liverpool. We then, of course, saw a tease of the Batmobile, and we all know that Matt Reeves was teasing the Batmobile because we all expected we would see the Batmobile on show that week. But of course, the shooting was suspended, so it meant that we never actually got the opportunity to see the Batmobile in the flesh. But Jake, this is really interesting, you know. I've never heard of this before, you know, a movie having some scenes shot outside, and then all of a sudden, wait, we can't do it outside, we're moving inside. Are you concerned about this at all?
Yeah, I mean, they've already shot some outdoor, but the rest of the movie's going to be indoor.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm not sure. I mean, if it's handled in the right way, it's going to look good. We might not notice because I think Batman Begins was shot indoor, and we didn't notice. So, I don't know, man. I don't mean outdoors going to be definitely. It's definitely going to look better on the screen. But if this is going to mean we're going to get the movie, you know, it's going to delay the movie and it's going to take more time, then screw it. Just shoot it indoor and give us the damn movie. I want to see it.
I think they moved indoors because of the pandemic, of course, but I think that maybe next year, you know, when everything calms down, they could go back outdoors again and shoot some things.
Yeah.
If some things aren't looking that good, they can always go back outdoors and do
some reshoots.
Yeah, it's not difficult, you know, it's not a hard thing to do. And of course, famously, Batman '89, the Tim Burton movie, that movie was completely shot in a studio. And
yeah,
I mean,
it was.
The Anton Fuss movie, the Anton Fuss sets is incredible, you know, that's iconic, and I think even to this day I watch that movie, although, you know, when you're older and you watch it, you kind of realise Batman's driving down the same streets over and over again, and it's a bit like, oh my god, you know, it's a bit like a cartoon, you know, where he's constantly going down the same corners, but I think the craftsmanship involved in that's fantastic, and I hope that they made this decision months ago, like when they went into the pandemic, they decided, okay, we're going to go indoors, and it's not a case of they've just decided this in the last few weeks and the guys are starting to build the sets, because I mean that could be a dramatic delay if that's the case. And the last thing we want, this movie's already had a 3 months delay, and the last thing we want is another delay, especially with all the other delays we've had, you know, with Wonder Woman 84 into 2022, we've had delays with Shazam. The last thing we want is another delay to a DC movie. But Jake, moving on to our next subject is, of course, we know that at the end of next month, we understand that Black Adam will begin principal photography. And we've all been waiting to hear about the casting. We know that the Justice Society of America, they are going to be in this movie. We know that certain members of the team will be appearing as older versions of themselves and newer versions of themselves, but we haven't heard any casting. And as we get closer to the start of production, coming up to DC Fandom, we're expecting to hear a few announcements. So I'm not sure if I get this guy's name right, but Noah Centineo, I think that's his name.
Noah Centineo.
Yeah, Noah Centineo. He's been confirmed as Atom Smasher. This is a character who I would imagine will be in the more present day Justice Society team. I'm not sure on his origins. I don't know this character too well, and again, I don't know this actor too well. You know, I know he's picked up a lot of Netflix fame. We also know he's been cast as He-Man in Netflix's Masters of the Universe series, but due to the pandemic, that movie was shelved, and there seems to be no release date in sight for that. He did bulk up for that though. There's some pictures floating about on the internet. He's looking quite big. You know, I've seen some pictures of him in his Netflix shows, and I've seen some pictures of him bulked up because he was going to play He-Man. The guy can bulk up, which is great. Hopefully he's still in that shape, because he got into that shape just before the pandemic. Hopefully he remains in that shape, and it means that he can play this character in Black Adam. What do you think of this, Jake?
Well, I've got a lot to say about this. So a year ago, Noah was already popular. You could hear, you know, everybody talking about him and his movies, and I was like, what's the fuss all about? So we go in, I check out The Perfect Date, because one of my favorite actresses was on this movie, Camila Mendes from Riverdale. Anyway, so I go on and check the movie, and I'm talking to myself, and why is this guy so terrible? Why is his acting so freaking terrible? Now, again, I've seen 3 movies for Noah, and I gotta say, his acting's not good. He literally plays the same character in every single movie. Just a little smile, and that's good. And that's what he exactly does. And I gotta say, I think the guy's miscast. I mean, I'm not super familiar with Adam Smasher's character from the comics. But I gotta say, I don't know, man. I feel like he'll be dragging those teenage girls, that have never read any comic book in their life. And they would, I don't know, man. I think that's a huge mistake. And he's definitely miscast.
Yeah, well, again, guys, I'm not really familiar with the actor. I've heard a lot about him. As I say, I heard about the He-Man casting. I remember at the time, I quite like He-Man. I remember checking him out at the time, just pictures and stuff. And I was a bit like, this guy doesn't look like He-Man. I've seen recently pictures of him jacked up and stuff, so I do know he can bulk up.
Yeah, but again, the shape, the physicality is important, but it's not as important as the acting skills. And the guy obviously lacks those skills. And judging on 3 movies I've seen for him, the guy can't act.
Yeah, like, again, guys, I'm taking Jake's word for it. Jake's my boy. He's telling me what he thinks. I've not seen this guy, so I'm going to take Jake's word on it. The character, Atom Smasher, I've seen him pop up in a few places. I'm not too familiar with Origins. I'm not sure we're going to get that in this Black Adam movie, because there's so much going on with that movie. Again, with the 2 versions of the Justice Society, Black Adam's origin, there's a lot to happen in that movie. Again, it's one of those cases, it's quite disappointing, being a DC fan. We had it with Deadshot, Deadshot famously wears the mask with the eyepiece. Will Smith played Deadshot. As soon as Will Smith was cast as Deadshot, we knew we would hardly see Deadshot wearing the mask. And again, I know it's one of those things, like, you don't cast Will Smith and put a mask on his face, you just don't do that. But it's this character, famously, he does wear the mask. And as Jake said about Noah, he's basically been cast, well, one of the main reasons he's been cast in this movie is to attract a female audience, and an audience that wouldn't normally come to see a DC movie. So I think we can pretty much rule out he won't be wearing the mask that much, because
they need his face to grab more audience.
Yeah, so that it's just a wee nitpick, it's one of these things with these movies. I don't know. It's difficult. I want to see these characters in their comic book form. The same way I want to see Harley Quinn wearing the Jester outfit, I'm greedy. I'm a comic book fan. I want to see this stuff. And sometimes, it's just so annoying when they hire people for their face rather than, just put the mask on, It's exciting, it's good. The next couple of weeks, hopefully building up to DC Fandom, we'll get some more casting announcements. I'm really excited for Black Adam after his tease in Shazam, and of course building up the whole Shazam Black Adam universe. Hopefully we might see those guys locking horns. Hopefully Dwayne Johnson sticks around with the DCEU, because he's a massive market seller himself. I would love in future the Justice League to get their hands dirty, as Jake would say, with Black Adam in a future movie. I mean, these are all things that I'm really hoping for. And of course, I'm really hoping to see Henry Cavill face up against Black Adam at some point as well. Maybe in this movie, we don't know. Anything's possible at this point, but I'm pretty certain that at some point in this movie, Henry Cavill's Superman will get to know about Black Adam. So, Jake, recently everybody's been spotting this. You've been going on the DC Fandom website, there's the wee drop-down menu. You can see all of your options about the wee islands they've got. You can go and see different parts of it. You've got the Hall of Justice and all this stuff. But one thing that appeared in many different people's accounts, which for some people it's different, some people will see it, some people won't, is DC have a list of movies, and at the bottom there's Secret Movie 1 and Secret Movie 2. So you, Jake, have already made a video on this over in DC's Daily Buzz. I'll link that, guys, in the description below if you guys want to go and watch that. Jake discusses what he thinks potentially these movies could be. What I was hoping to do is have Jake on and we could discuss what these movies could be. But since that happened, we've had numerous rumours. Jake, the last month has been crazy with DC rumours. The first rumour that came out was from DC Mythic, of course, Jimmy Conrad, famous blogger. He said that he'd heard that a Zatanna movie was in the works. Somebody tweeted Gail Simone, who was a writer in Justice League Dark, Batgirl. She, of course, wrote Birds of Prey, and she replied with yep. So pretty much confirming that a Zatanna movie was in the works. That same week, we also heard that WB were also working on a John Constantine and a Raven movie, which, sounds, different. These characters are all mainly, in Raven's case, it's more of a Teen Titans character, but in Zatanna and John Constantine's point of view, they are mostly in Justice League Dark, and we do know that J.J. Abrams is working on a Justice League Dark series over on HBO Max. People have been searching for confirmation on this. There's been no confirmation at this point. But one thing that's repeatedly been said, Jake, and I find astonishing, is people are saying that these movies won't be connected to J.J. Abrams' series. And I'm a bit like, what? Why? Why would you make a Justice League Dark series, have a Zatanna on that show, have a John Constantine on that show, but then have a different version on the movies? I understand, DC are now going to be going with the whole multiverse effect, but I get the multiverse effects come into play when you're trying to separate Zack Snyder's vision to the new DC vision, or you're trying to separate Robert Pattinson's Batman to the Joker from Joaquin Phoenix. I understand totally. Or when you're trying to separate, CW DC Universe from the actual DCEU continuity. I understand that word multiverse comes into play, but when you get the opportunity to set new characters up, surely you would build them into your DCEU. Sure, it wouldn't make sense to make things even more confusing, because I understand in the sense having multiple Batmans, having multiple Supermans, it's not perfect, but while DC are still getting their shit together, it makes sense to allow different directors to do their different things. But when you've got characters like Zatanna, John Constantine, Raven, these are established characters in the sense of solo adventures or TV series. Surely it would make sense to let J.J. Abrams do his series.
I think the case that instead of putting a lot of characters in one movie, like in one Justice League Dark movie, the whole purpose of having these solos is to introduce the characters, develop them right, and then add them all at once. Or at least, some of them, because he can't do a show or a solo movie for each character. So instead of just, pushing John Constantine and pushing Zatanna and pushing Swamp Thing and pushing the other members of the Justice League Dark, he thought of giving specific big names, their own solo movie or their own solo shows, and then putting them all in one place. And I think that's the right option. That's the right choice to make. But again, before we get into Justice League Dark, I think it's going to take some time, because he's got to do the, we've heard so far that they're working on a solo John Constantine movie, and then they're going to do this Zatanna movie, and we're not sure if they're going to include Raven in the upcoming Justice League Dark, because I think I know she's not really a member in the comics of the Justice League Dark, like a team member, but the fact that we had her in Justice League Apocalypse War, working with John Constantine, they might add her. So who knows? But again, I think it's the right decision to make. But it's going to take a long while.
Yeah, I think that we've heard that the J.J. Abrams Justice League Dark, that's set to come out next year. So that's going to be the fall of 2021. Of course, that's not confirmed at this point, but I've heard the plan is, if production can get underway early next year, the fall of this year, that movie could debut late next year. And I'm a bit like, really? And then you're hearing these rumours. At this point, it's all rumours, Right now, as soon as we found out there was 2 secret movies coming from DC, everybody's throwing darts at it. Everybody's guessing. Everybody's going, could it be Ava DuVernay's New Gods? Is that still happening? Is that movie still in the works? Could it be Wonder Woman 3? Well, we know at this point it probably isn't that. Could it be, could it be a Justice League? Could it be anything? At this point, we don't know. So we're hearing these rumours coming out. It seems to be this Zatanna rumour seems to be sticking. It seems to be that DC are really interested in this character. I understand it's the multiverse, but I don't know if I'm really keen on having J.J. Abrams having a multi-million-dollar TV series over on HBO Max, and in the big screen we have a different actress playing Zatanna. I'm not into it. I just don't think for me, I understand the multiverse, but it works when you can't really control it. But in this sort of situation, you can control it. You can control the casting. You can make us one actress like a role. I don't know if I'm really interested in seeing multiple versions of Satana the way I'm interested in seeing multiple versions of Batman,
Mm-hmm.
Moving on from DC Mythic, again, it's Jeremy Conrad, it's a guy who's started to get a lot of respect from the fan base since people are saying that he was the guy that predicted the Snyder Cut,
Mm-hmm.
People are saying that, he's getting a lot of praise. Well, Jeremy Conrad came out with another rumour. It's a rumour, there's no confirmation. And he said on his DC website, while fans are excited to see Zack Snyder's Justice League sometime in 2021 on HBO Max, Warner is looking forward to the future of the iconic team, and it appears they have huge plans to bring the Super Friends back together on the big screen. I've learned today that Warner Bros. Has begun development on a Justice League Rebirth film, which is separate from the Snyder Cut and not a continuation of that Justice League story. This movie is live action and not animated. At this point, Jeremy goes on to speculate. That's the quote, guys, there. At that moment, Jeremy then goes on to speculate. He says it's very early, but he wouldn't be surprised if J.J. Abrams was approached to direct the movie, which would make sense, guys. J.J. Abrams is now part of the Warner family. I wouldn't be surprised. The guy's been trying to make a Superman film since God knows when.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't be surprised if Warner did go to him, and he then goes on to talk about potentially Christina Hodson, who wrote the Harley Quinn movie, who's writing the new Flash movie, and of course is rumoured to be involved in the Batgirl movie. She seems to be the person that Warner Bros. Is trusting right now with the DC projects. I don't know why after Harley Quinn, for some reason Warner Bros. Seem to like her, even though Harley Quinn was a bit confusing and, totally took characters away from like what we're used to, but that's a different subject altogether. So, Jake, this is interesting. It backs up what I've been saying, which I believe. I believe that the DCEU will continue. What they have set up so far will continue to go on. Of course, with the announcement in the Snyder Cut, everything that we speculated goes out the window, because at that moment, what we understood for a long time was Zack's vision was never going to be released. Of course, AT&T got involved, and they said, no, we need content for the streaming service. The Zack Snyder Cut's coming out. We've discussed that, a million times. We've discussed it in this episode. We've discussed, Snyder's cut to death. It's kind of boring at this point. What Jeremy Conrad's saying, Jake, is DC are moving forward with a new Justice League. Now, it's not explained at this point. He says the word Rebirth. Of course, that's a 2016 comic book series from DC where they reset the continuity yet again after the New 52. I think that people are seeing the word Rebirth and thinking, they're making a Rebirth comic. I don't think that is what they're doing. I think it's more of, it's a Justice League reboot. I don't think it's Rebirth, the story arc, because there's not much of a story there to bring out. I think it's more of if they do go with this, I think it'll be a lot more of, it's a rebirth of Aquaman, Jason Momoa, Gal Gadot, Ezra probably continues the Flash, whoever plays Batman, whether it's Michael Keaton, whether it's Ben Affleck. At this point, I would put my money on Michael Keaton, but, that's what we're hearing. Obviously, Ray Fisher's Cyborg, if they decide to continue to use him. All these characters involved in this movie. What do you think of this?
I'm not sure if it's a reboot or not, but we need another Justice League movie, definitely. I just hope, if the case is J.J. Abrams directing the movie, I think we're in good hands, because his projects have been really good so far. And since he's really developing and working with HBO Max, on DC projects, and he's really dedicated to DC. And I think that's a good sign. And I gotta say, I would take a Justice League Rebirth movie. But again, just like you said, Jason Momoa is already playing Aquaman. Gal Gadot is already playing Wonder Woman. But who's gonna play Batman? Is Henry Cavill gonna stick around as Superman? That's why we should really wait and see what the studio is gonna, choose.
When we're discussing the secret movies, I think if they announced a Justice League movie in 2024, let's just talk 4 years from now, that would give us 4 years until we get there. And that would mean in that time we would get an Aquaman sequel, we'll have Wonder Woman sequel by that point, we'll have a Flash movie, which will probably feature Cyborg. If Michael Keaton will be Batman in the DCEU, which I am, pretty sure is the plan at this point, if he will be the new Batman, then he will have a few movies to cameo in. Of course, at that point, we do know Henry Cavill signed a multi-picture cameo deal. Mm-hmm. We'll have a chance to see Henry Cavill return, and hopefully, I'm convinced that audiences will show Warner Bros. How much we want to see Henry Cavill be Superman, and at that point, they can finally put their differences aside, sit down, sign a contract, and get Henry Cavill back in for Man of Steel 2. The idea of doing a Justice League movie separate from Snyder's vision, I think's great. I'm not, anti-Snyder at all. I think I really enjoyed some aspects of Snyder's work. I stand by Snyder should have been kept on as a creative guy behind the scenes. I think he would have been great to have for ideas, just maybe not in complete control. And I think for someone like J.J. Abrams, his specialty is setting up universes, and I think J.J. could re-establish the Justice League, bring them together properly, and set them up for future adventures. Because, as I say, guys, Jason Momoa is a great age, he's still young, Gal's still young, Ezra's still young, the Fisher's still young, all these characters, Zachary Levi's still a good age. These guys are all great ages. These guys could play these characters for the next 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. And it could be fantastic, we could finally get to see the DCEU we wanted to see, instead of, of course, what we got, and unfortunately, as shitty as it was, the universe that we got with all the controversy. I think it could be really great to see JJ getting that. Mm-hmm. But, Jake, let's wrap up with this one. This is our final point. Yeah. This has came from Grace Randolph. I've seen it reported a few places. I've seen it, debunked in a few places. But I'm going to give Grace her time, because me and you, we have a lot of time for Grace, a lot of respect for Grace. And she's not always right. No one's right. Me and you are wrong. Me and you make predictions on the show that end up being wrong. I said I was convinced that Robert Pattinson would replace Ben Affleck as Batman. And of course, it turned out that the WB were giving Robert Pattinson's Batman his own world. It's just these things. Sometimes you make predictions, sometimes you don't get them right. Grace Randolph has made a video recently where she said that she has heard that the upcoming Batgirl movie will be Batman Beyond. Now, at this point, we know nothing more about it. I just want to quickly go over this, Jake. I think when Grace says Batman Beyond, I'm hoping that Grace has maybe picked it up wrong. I'm hoping that what Grace means when she says Batman Beyond, what she's hearing is the rumour, of course, when Michael Keaton first signed on, when Michael Keaton was first announced to be in talks to reprise his role as Batman, one of the projects that was mentioned wasn't Batman Beyond. I mean, that was fans coming up with that. That was fans creating a vision of, Michael Keaton would be so good in a Batman Beyond movie. That was never mentioned publicly by the studio, by Hollywood Reporter, by Deadline, by that movie was never mentioned. One of the movies that was mentioned by the Hollywood Reporter by name was a Batgirl movie. Mm-hmm. Now, it was interesting when we heard that Michael Keaton could be involved in that movie. We thought, what could that mean? It's now sort of coming out that the plan at this moment, of course, these plans could change. I mean, if Michael Keaton says no to being Batman, then everything's good, Then Warner Bros. Are back trying to figure out who they're going to be Batman, So at this point, it's all speculation. But we have heard that Michael Keaton could be appearing in a Batgirl movie as some sort of mentor role for Batgirl, as the older Batman, I think that's what we've heard is the plan from Warner Bros. But this Batman Beyond thing, I think that's a bit strange. What do you think?
I think it's a wonderful idea, but I'm not a fan of, making Batgirl the new Batman Beyond. So I hope it's a case where he's more of a mentor, but then they would give us the actual Batman Beyond. But this wouldn't happen, unless it was the main Batman of the DCU, which is Ben Affleck, but let's say an older version of him. But then again, I gotta say, I love Barbara Gordon. I'm not a huge fan of her character. But I would love to see a team up with her and the actual, Batfleck. But we all know that Ben Affleck is not returning back. And if Michael Keaton agrees on becoming the new main Bat for the DCU, I feel like before we get the Batgirl movie, I think we should get a Batman Beyond, but set in the future. You know, that would be a great idea, just like the 90s show. And then get the solo Batgirl movie, but I don't feel like having an older Batman as a mentor is really necessary in there. Instead, we can have Commissioner Gordon, you know, back there, and they might cast, you know, Dick Grayson, Jason Todd, or Damian Wayne. I feel like Damian Wayne would work perfectly inside the DCEU because we already have an older version of Batman. They can really introduce him and let him team up with Batgirl, because based on what we've heard, Dick Grayson is being planned on being, you know, introduced in Matt Reeves' universe. So I'm not sure if Warner Bros. Is really willing to, you know, have a multiple versions of Dick Grayson. So I would love to see a solo Batgirl movie, but I don't want the whole mentor thing, you know, an older Bruce Wayne from another Earth to be her mentor. Instead, I would love for her to have her own solo action movie with one of the Robins, Damian Wayne, Jason Todd, Tim Drake. It doesn't matter. And for the actual Batman Beyond movie, I want Terry. What was his name? Terry McGinnis as the main protagonist, teaming up, you know, with the older Bruce Wayne. I think that would be a fabulous idea.
I think, like, for me, well, the DCEU is right now, I don't think I would like to see Batman Beyond in with Gal's Wonder Woman and Jason's Aquaman. I just don't think I would enjoy that, you know, not right now. I think it's something you build up to. I understand, you know, with Ben Affleck out as Batman, and at this point he's not shown any signs of returning. If he is going to return, it will probably be for HBO Max only. I can't see him agreeing to a multi-picture deal to appear in the DC movies, because that's one of the reasons why he pulled out in the first place, is he couldn't really commit to the constant, you know, in the movies all the time. I think he could return maybe to do a solo series a couple of years down the line, but right now the DCU has to move forward. We have to build something, you know. That's the one thing that we've been saying in this show, Jake. We've been complaining that DC don't have a plan. I think the Michael Keaton Batman casting, me and you have had a debate about it. I think it's a fantastic idea, but I think it'll help the DC universe moving forward. I think you're saying it's like a Batman for a different universe. When Michael Keaton becomes Batman, I think they won't even, like, you know, it's hard to explain, like, I think it'll be joked away. I don't think it'll be like a constant thing where every movie they're treating Michael Keaton like an alien. I think it'll be a case of Michael Keaton will be like, after the first time he meets Gal and Jason, I think that will be it. You know, there'll be no more gags. I think it will just be he is Batman. They won't even make it a big deal, and I think that's important that they do that. I hope it's not a case of you're constantly referencing Michael Keaton as a Batman from a different world, you know. I think if Ben's out, you just let Ben go. You recast with Michael Keaton, and you just keep going. You know, you don't stop. Because the one thing about the DCEU is, the last few years after Aquaman, Shazam, and Birds of Prey, you know, maybe it wasn't the greatest, but, you know, after these movies have came out, DC have got a really good base to build their universe from. In a future Justice League movie, we'll already know a lot of the characters, so you won't have to explain who Aquaman is, who Wonder Woman is, you know. And I think that the good thing about using the Michael Keaton Batman is it just makes it the same Batman that Ben Affleck was, except he's a bit older. And the relation to the Batgirl movie, I think in the first movie, having Batman be a bit of a trainer in the sense of maybe shows her how to be a detective, I wouldn't mind that. As long as in the future, Batgirl and maybe a follow-up movie goes and bees herself and goes and bees Batgirl. But, you know, you make some fantastic points there, you know, maybe Tim Drake or Jason Todd appearing. The thing about Michael Keaton's Batman is he never had a Robin. The last time we saw him in 1992 in Batman Returns, which was 30 years ago nearly, it'll be 30 years when The Flash comes out, they could say that he had Dick Grayson, he had Jason Todd, he had Tim Drake. They could just say that, you know, there's no reason to make that up. As we know from Ben Affleck's Batman, the vision they had didn't include Nightwing or Dick Grayson, Zack Snyder's confirmed he planned to introduce Carrie Kelly from The Dark Knight Returns, the female Robin, which fans of Carrie Kelly, I'm sorry, but I just don't like that version of the character. I think that Dick Grayson deserves more respect. I think Jason Todd deserves more respect. And I think that Batgirl being in it with a Dick Grayson, I think it's a great idea. It's a great idea that you dropped, but of course you're correct again what you said. Will Warner Bros. Let the DCEU use the character that they're planning on using in their universe? I don't know. I don't know how serious Warner Bros. Are about this multiverse. Is it just a word they're throwing out there to try and appease fans? You know, because I think Warner Bros. Are scared that the Snyder fans are going to just attack every DC movie that isn't a Snyder movie. So throwing the word multiverse out there might appease fans. You know, I think that, I'm hoping that's not the case, and Warner Bros. Are serious about the multiverse and give us multiple versions of characters. You know, and allow the DCEU to have a Nightwing, allow the DCEU to have a Batgirl, Barbara Gordon, allow the DCEU to have a Red Hood. I'm hoping that they're willing to let them do that, and it's not a case of, if Matt Reeves decides he wants to use Poison Ivy, then you're not getting to use Poison Ivy in a potential Gotham City Sirens movie because Matt Reeves is using her. I hope that's not the case, because that would be shitty. Mm-hmm. As I say, Batman Beyond, I think it's a fantastic idea down the line. What having the older Batman's fantastic. I think right now it's important that we have Batman in the DCEU. I still think Batman Beyond, the reason why I think it won't happen is I think Michael Keaton will play Batman for the next few years in the DCEU, and then I think by the time Michael Keaton's ready to retire, I think Robert Pattinson will come into the DCEU. I think his universe, eventually some point down the line, will have a Crisis on Infinite Earths type moment, and I think all the universes will come together. I think that's what will happen. You know, I'm very confident in the sense of eventually, once Matt Reeves has had time to establish his universe, they will come to the DCEU, because it's a no-brainer. You know, Matt Reeves has got a fantastic cast, a fantastic director. It makes sense that down the line it would all come together. It's so exciting, you know, Jake. It's just so exciting that the amount of different projects we're hearing about from DC now. You know, for so long we were down in the dumps, we weren't sure what was happening. We had Warner Brothers people saying, oh no, we're just going to do solo movies. And that was a bummer, because we wanted to see the crossovers, we wanted to see the Injustice League, we wanted to see Suicide Squad versus Justice League, we want to see the New Gods. We were so disappointed when we heard that. Now the opportunities arise for DC to come together again. But Jake, that's probably all we've got time for this week. Let everybody know where they can find you. You
can find me on Instagram at DC Daily Buzz, and my YouTube channel at DC's Daily Buzz.
And you can follow me on Instagram at Detective Comic Talks, and over on Twitter, guys, you can follow us at DC Comic Talks. I hope you have a fantastic week, and I'll see you again soon.